Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, listeners. Made in 1 minute. Let me just share this video and the program can start. Today is Wednesday, the 19th of May, 2021. The time is just gone about 5 minutes to 3 in the afternoon in Birmingham, England. Just a minute. Let me just share this video and the program will start. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, listeners. It's me, Sulaiman Swai, coming back on Facebook Live to discuss the state of insecurity in the country. And I don't want this program to be long, but God knows I know it's going to be long again. But I'll start with to say we have a problem of leadership, as I kept saying from the beginning. We don't expect to come out of a dictatorship and not to have the required leadership in order to move us ahead. And the required leadership, we all knew that's why we had a coalition. That's why we came together. But we have action. We had a plan. And the plan was to have a transitional government. And in order to correct the wrongs and build a foundation that we can work on to move the country. But we lost that leadership. What we had is a continuity. And I will tell you, if Yahya Jammeh was here today, it would be worse. For people saying that if Yahya Jammeh, it would be worse. Because it was a ticking time bomb The ticking time of can take a long time. The country was primed for this, and it's going to get worse until we do the right thing and take up the position of leadership and in order to do it. And before Yahya Jammeh left, we have seen what was happening in the country. It started from then on, but because of the democracy we have now, it escalated, and we'll explain that. Again, that failed leadership is a continuity, and the proof of that continuity is here. What we needed to do, one of the most important things was a security reform. Without security, we would not have this. But the president completely failed on the security reform. He politicized it and he ignored it. And he gave it to people. He doesn't have the competence, who have the integrity to lead the reforms. Reforms are leadership led. Reforms don't happen in a vacuum. They're leadership led. Reforms is about mindset. It's about knowledge. It's about integrity. It's about catching the momentum and use that momentum and to make sure we achieve the change. That's how I feel. We needed reforms our civil servant, what you call it, the reform for our civil administration, which is the civil service. Civil service reforms are technically equally important because it helps for us to even to achieve the security sector reform. The security, the civil service is responsible for the day-to-day running of the government. What it means that they are responsible for the day-to-day running of the country, from the budgeting, from the policies to do anything in the country, have to go through a civil service policy. Then, if we don't have the reform of the civil service, how can we have a reform of the security sector? These things go in tandem. But again, another aspect of reforms was our social reforms. And these two have to be led under the auspices of a security secure environment, but have to be led by technocrats, have to be led by government. It have to be led through leadership. We have not even talked about the political reforms. These are the other very important reforms that we needed in order to build our democracy that will have led us to a free and fair election. We all know what happened to that. We all have seen the evidence where the president have come out and deliberately sabotage everything. He forced sabotage this the security sector reforms by doing the wrong things deliberately for political posturing, knowing that already his intentions are to continue to disregard the agreements or disregard what is best for Gambia, and this is of him building his own, entrenching himself in that he accommodated all these sympathize, those who empathize with dictatorship and try to get these other people based on his political programs. And we have seen what happened with that. But again, he did the same thing. So sabotage this the sectoral reforms of the civil service by doing what? Entrenching corruption and incompetency, by making sure that nobody have confidence and hope. You need confidence in order to influence the people. That confidence was necessary, and how did he start? That was not only he started by appointing, recalling people that have actually damaged the civil service and disregard because of for his program, Barrow's program, Barrow Enterprise. He disregarded the interest of the nation. But again, move on to solidify that by doing what? The 50 million that we spend on a journey commission, which was to even the scope was very narrow. The scope was very narrow. It was about Jammeh and what enabled Jammeh for corruption. It's not an asset recovery. to look at corruption in totality, to go for a lot of other people. I mean, to make sure everything, I mean, people learn their lessons. No, it was actually narrow. But with this narrowness, what it points to is the facilitators and the idea and the actors. That's all. He failed on that, on delivering on that narrow scope. In fact, not only failed on delivering it in a sense of going by the recommendations to make sure that people would be dealt with in a manner that will avoid this happening again and put in the recommendations that will need to be in place in order to avoid this happening again. No, he kept the people that enable him to do the same thing. And we have seen the result of that is the wealth that he have accumulated within a short period of time. And this is a record breaking actually compared to Jammeh. Probably Jammeh did it in 10 years, he did it in 4 years. Or Jammeh have done it for 20 years, he did it in 4 years. That's some testimony of it. Because we have seen the way he, in fact, went on with his enablers in order to steal these properties that owns us. People keep on saying property Jammeh. It wasn't Jammeh's property. It's owned by us and just distributed technically among themselves. That's himself, his enablers, his supporters, or whatever it is, patrons, and that's it. Now we have not had anything resolved. And actually, what he's done is they have they have dealt with it in a very incompetent way, in a corrupt way, to the extent of the next government might have to address these problems because of they have not followed the due process. The commission did not have the powers to sell someone's property. The commission had the powers to make recommendations. And if the government wanted to sell something, government had to go through the judicial system to ensure that there's a court order that warrants this thing to be sold. And it was a clear-cut, easy way of doing that. But they failed to do that. They just rush to share it among themselves. And this is the problem. This is the fact that the guy doesn't care about us, Gambia, or the people. The guy cares about himself and his family. He doesn't even care about his political party or anything else. Is it then what do you call a person like that? And the proof of that is here. With everything going on, the guy is indifferent. He just disregard to address these issues. And state, to take emergency measures, not to declare a state of emergency, but to take emergency measures that would expedite to make sure that these things are dealt with properly. No. He is sitting and hoping that things will cool down and things will follow. No. Again, he is secure. He is secured in his fortified state house. He's secured in there. And with the understanding that if things get really bad, he will be running to Senegal. This is it. This is his thinking. And logically, if anyone wants to disregard it, that's yours. But any sensible person will come to the same conclusion. Why this? We have seen I know supporters who come out and say, but he had addressed this at the coalition. You see, when we said leaders to deal with issues, not to make one statement or rhetoric, we expect them to come out and give, to show the leadership, inspire and make sure, show the change by doing, putting in the initiatives or whatever it takes, the mechanism, whatever it takes to bring about change, to see it being done. But not to use the currency to say a little bit of it. And in fact, in that same state, in that same sitting, in fact, pluralize the Gambians more or ignore the Gambians or insult the intelligence of Gambians again by making statements which are really not of a leader. Now, as I said, we are not saying that the entire government are bad people. But the government as an institution have failed, as an administration have failed. There are some good people among them. And that's why we keep on appealing. That's why we keep on talking to them. And we are Gambians. And in order to solve our problems, we have to engage each other and with civility, with respect, and to deal with this. Yes, politics would be in it. But there are moments that we don't see political parties in this. What we see is the solutions and citizens acting in order to find a solution. I, as normally, I get my sources, and some of those sources come from the state house itself. People who are now very close to the president, but are caught in a hard, I mean, hard and a rock, I mean, in a very difficult position. And now the president have already lost it, and they know that they have really lost it. Now they're trying to find ways to remedy it. And these people, some of them, will reach out. And during this course of these things, we know about the president, in fact, continuing to undermine this conflict. You see, when we think of crimes, what responsible of crime, again, there is leadership. The same president went to have a meeting, about six of them in the meeting. And in that meeting, the president placed a call to the governor of North Bank Division and made arrangements for the governor to rally support, rally the chiefs. They are already strategizing. The president wants to go and to strategize and try to appeal to these chiefs to help him undermine our democracy, to commit crimes, to break the law in order to stay in power. Because he has realized how unpopular he becomes. He has realized how difficult it is, as we have warned him. But they told him that an incumbent will win, an incumbent have a 30%, 40% guarantee, and all those nonsense. I don't know where they got the theory from. Now, things have come to realization that money alone cannot win you election. People have to believe in you. People have to believe in something. The condition in the country has to be better. And all these things are in absence. The condition of the country is just getting worse. Standard of living, insecurity. Now nobody believes in him because he's a liar. He has been proven to be a liar. His word cannot be taken. Nobody trusts him. Even people are close to him. He doesn't have an ideology. He hasn't got anything presented to people that will give people hope. Now the only thing he's left with is to try to continue to undermine our democracy, to undermine our rule of law by going there to block the people who are appointed from the governor downwards to try to subvert the will of the people. And we don't think, what is the biggest crime? We'll get to the main crimes. I decided to agitate that for two reasons, to stop him. Another thing, if he decided to do it, then Gambians would know that, no, there's no way Ben could have guessed this won't happen. If Ben said that, then he got an information before the information come out from the president, and the president come out and do the same thing, do exactly as Ben has said. That's it. In pretext, he's using a pretext that he's traveling to visit roads and markets or whatever it is. I did that for that reason. What they did after, in order, because they cannot afford, he cannot afford not to go, even though he's been exposed. This is disregard of the due process and disregard of common sense. Now, people know that you are going to commit a crime. Citizens have warned over that you're going to commit a crime, but you insist to go and commit a crime. That's what a desperate person does. That's what a desperate person does. And he's desperate, and that's why Gambians should be very careful to understand where we are now. This guy is desperate, he'll do anything to stay on. But I'll give you my predictions again. This same president might abandon the country before elections. If the trend continues, he will abandon the country before elections to go to Dakar. Then it's for us to be very careful among ourselves. He is going to dump us and leave us to deal with this mess. Then we should be very careful to try to, find solutions in dealing with this mess that we have found ourselves. And another theory I'm telling you, if we go to elections and he realizes that he have lost, he cannot convincingly come out to declare anything, his cowardice might cause an insecurity. And that insecurity will come out. I don't want to mention where it's going to come out, But I know it's not him acting on it, but he's going to bring out doubt due to his immaturity and a lack of leadership and doubt the elections. And once the elections are in doubt, the Gambia will be destabilized. I am warning Gambians on this. I will elaborate more as we go closer to the elections on these issues. But he's going to create doubt just as Trump created doubt, and in Gambia is prime. Is prime that if doubt happens in our elections, we got. Now it's for us then to make sure we build the confidence with people and the systems and the integrity of our elections to make sure those doubts would not hold when he evoked it, because when it happens, Gambia will lose out completely. All political parties will lose out because there will be no peace and stability, and none of us want to go through that again. But he's going on to try to do this, and still now he went. Now yesterday they brought out the press release, and to add not bank on it because just to try to say that what I say, what is not true in what I say. Is for Gambians to look at things and to realize where we are now. We are left with our own device. We are left with our own device. Everything has totally failed. The crimes cannot be controlled, and I hear people talking about the army coming out and all those things. Where have that ever, solved a problem? I can give you many examples where you have the police being militarized. Go to Brazil when it happened, in the favelas and other places. Did it take out the crime out there? No. When it got better was when a socialist government came in and certain policies started. De Silva, his 2 terms in office and so on. But now it's gone back, gone back to how it was. Go and look at the prisons in Brazil. It has happened in many South American countries. It has happened in many places. No, it's about leadership. And once we find that leadership, things will start to change. But that leadership again at present, Gambians should come out together to find the solution to that leadership. President Barrow doesn't have the solutions, and the institutions are not being led, and we will find a way. We have to find a way to do this. Now, to start the main body of this program, I kept on saying taking time off. And this, whoever have followed my programs can check this out. I said this during the impasse, and I said if we take over, there will be a presence of taking time. We have to make sure we deal with these issues to make sure this taking time will not. It happens in whenever there is a change of government, especially from a dictatorship. And because of, in our case, there's a big distortion in the change we have. Our change, and yes, I keep on saying, the impasse was a blessing in disguise. Because the impasse have, in fact, tricked the Gambian psyche to think of that period to realize that we are coming off from a dictatorship. What happened is when Jammeh considered, you see, that's where Jammeh fell. Gambians easily forget. When the minute Jammeh considered that evening going on, Gambians were in celebratory mode. Gambians started to forget. I know the victims, direct victims, are not. Collectively, we are all victims, but what I mean is, the general population started to forget and celebrate until Yahya may pull it back and we went through this impasse to realize that we're coming out from it. But apart from that, we keep on seeing in many narratives or many times we look at things, we think that, no, we went to elections and Yahya was gone. Literally, just wasn't true. A lot of things happened for that elections to even happen. The way it happened in order for us to win. And that thing, in absence of any of those factors, the elections would not have been won, and the impasse would have been different. Then we would have still been a dictatorship. Then that tells us that we came out from a dictatorship. That's why it needed for us to be unified. Unity of purpose should have continued. The same way and manner how we managed to remove the dictator, that's the way, same way we should have continued in order to take this dictatorship out, to change that system. And the people would have to do that. The international cannot do that. They can support us. The economic cannot do that for us. They can just support the temporal peace we have, and it's us for Gambians to do. Now we have come to realization of all this now. But what all we see now is just the smoke. Nothing have happened yet. I am not in. It's not. I'm not talking lack of empathy or anything. I am trying to put this as realistic as possible. It's not about fear or anything, because that's already happened. Gambians are calling from all walks of life, especially those people, the privilege I used to talk to mainly, that they have the influence is huge. There might be small number of privileged Gambians, but their influence is something that would have bring about a change. But in fact, most of them became part of our problems. But it's never too late. Rather now than never, and that's why we are still appealing for us to come to our consciousness to realize, as I said, we cannot build our walls big enough, be tall enough or big enough. We cannot fortify our walls with barbed wires with anything enough. We cannot put CCTV enough. We cannot hire guards enough. We will always be in the case of insecurity if the country is not led properly. In the absence of democracy, rule of law, social justice, there shall be no peace. That's a fact. And we can live in gated community. We can live in order. Go and ask people who live in South Africa. That's not peace. We will still be an open prison. We will never have that stability. We will not have that peace of mind. Then what is worth living if we are like that? And this is not only affecting the Gambian people in the Gambia. And this, again, I emphasize, so that Gambians can always empathize and understand the diaspora. We are restless here because of what is happening in Gambia. But when it comes to anything that they perceive to enjoy, Gambian diasporas are seen in difference. That's why our right to vote will make sure we follow up that too, and Gambian diasporas have to vote, or we will petition for election not to be voted because it's not fair. Though. What is happening in the Gambia today? And the entire Gambian population are restless, are in the state of insecurity, and we, as we belong to the Gambia, we feel the same thing. And this failure of leadership is what brought this out to us. Why did I say that? I'll continue to say this. Even Yajamo says it's going to happen. How it's going to happen could be different because of the measures that Yajamo will use on democracy. It might put certain limits on certain things, but it will not have stopped it. We would not have stopped it at all. And we have to remember again, unreported crimes and crimes that Yajamo have inflicted on Gambians are equally bad because of the sense of insecurity was in during time of Yajame. But once Yajame left, we had this relief. And it always happened. You have a state of settlement. You have a state of relief. And it's temporary before the reality kicks in again. This is what happened in our case. It's not that something else came in. What came in is the lack of leadership. We could have moved on from there with the leadership and just sail through and be in a better place to be. Because security is not only about the physical aspect of it. The physical aspect of security reacts or serve as a contingency to deal with the problems. But security is about leadership to avoid it happening. But in the same time of the leadership of planning, you have a contingency of if. And obviously, part of the physical security is a deterrent. When you see a police officer, when you see certain things, you realize that, oh, listen, but, and that's for people who are out there to do bad. But generally, I mean, these crimes will be committed by a very, very small minority. Generally, the people law abiding. That's why it have never happened where you have equal number of police or law enforcement to the population. No, you have a proportion of police to the population because of generally we are all law abiding. That's why when rule of law breaks and people come out, the security can get hold of control that because of the will that we gave for them to by consent, policing by consent, it is taken from them. Now they because we lost the confidence in them, that will come out. This is the situation which is developing. The situation here is not about reacting. It should be about looking at the root causes of why these things are happening. Let's just look at a point here. For 3 to 4 years now, how many youths have left school? Either they've gone through the examination process in secondary school, or some of them dropped before secondary school, or some of them have not even attempted school. How many of them are? Even for the people that have attempted or have gone through and been certified by giving a certificate for whatever we grade the certificate, what does the certificate mean? Does it give anybody a job? Does it prepare the person to go and open up a business to start something? What do we have? How many of them have regenerated in the 4 years? There are in thousands. How many jobs have we created? The little job created, how many of those jobs went to foreigners? This is not about xenophobia. The reason that most of the jobs went to foreigners is because foreigners have the skill, or foreigners have the uh, um, foreigners have the mindset. I mean, what do you call it? Are motivated to do these jobs, and so there are other conditions. Okay? That's why again, when you think of security, you think of the leadership. Then to some of these problems I mean, these problems are a factor of many reasons, many things that could have been dealt with and to avoid it coming here. But as you said, security reform is one thing, but it's not only about the physical security, about the uniform, the army. Also, you know, there are other issues, there are other social issues. And remember that we had 22 years of dictatorship where there's a lid put on things, and we lost country, as society, as people, we lost our moral vouchers. Social fabric have been torn off, you know, and youth have been the people, not youth, in fact, the country have been traumatized, and everything we needed a lot to be invested in onto the people, not to concentrate on building roads and bridges, especially leading to nowhere or not connected to any economic strategy that will make sure the people benefit from those roads and bridges and to this thing. But what happened is the lack of leadership and thinking that the notion of let me build road and bridges, you see, these are the disconnect. It's not about to do with the people, benefit the people, it's to fool the people and to move on and cause first. Now we are in a ticking time bomb. And this is not the bomb itself. It has not exploded yet. And God forbid let it explode. We still have time to do something about it, to either isolate the bomb, try to diffuse it by taking off the timer off, or the any device, the fuse or whatever it is, or if it is a bomb that it be lit but on a string with a dynamite, we try to swear, I mean, cut this lid off or whatever before it goes to the main body to explode. Then we are in the journey. But all the components that makes the bomb are there. Be it the security sector, failure of security sector reforms, be it the society as it is, and things are not dealt with, the economic, the youth and unemployment, the trauma and everything else, be it the porous borders that people will be coming in and going, easy to commit crime and get out with it. These are all issues that are part of creating the ticking time bomb. But mainly, the failure is we don't have leadership to deal with this, and that's where we should have fun. We are more polarized today, than ever, and that what that does is to help fuel these things. Our economic conditions are worse off than ever. Don't ever uh, don't ever believe in the GDP figures. Don't ever believe in the budget that figures they give you. It's all cooked up. We live the economy. We know who feels it knows it. We know there's no prospects there. Standard of living, things are getting out of hand. Even the middle class cannot afford their basic necessities. And all that's how it's going. But a few minority are still thriving. I'm not talking about the people who that work hard for their money, but we have seen the people that gravitate towards the president to be the patrons of the presidents. They have changed. Their physical appearance have changed. Their demeanor have changed. Their clothes have changed. They're driving bigger vehicles. They're renting bigger apartments or been given bigger apartments and be building their own. That's the reality. Now, what do you think all this does to the problem we have? It's all add up what boils, 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 and the effect. And we all see the situation of poverty, the divide, I mean, the half and half not is just what it does. And people are just lost hope. I mean, and what Yahya meant, one of the things that Yahya did was to enable. And technically, he allowed when he wanted certain things, he allowed, or when he threatened, he allowed and complied with the EU or the US deportation, these things. But latter part, it become concern of his survival than anything else. What he did was to come out there to be acting as the good guy and everything. I'm not going to accept anybody. I'm not going to do this. No, it was not a favor to the people being repatriated. No, it was his favor. Because in fact, he enabled the back way more. Because people who live in Bakau and certain areas can tell you the green bosses and other things that were taking youth from their this thing out is to take off the pressure from this boiling hot lava that was going to explode. He knew what we were doing. And we talked about this. This government has not brought out one initiative. The little that has come out from the European Union and everything have just evaporated. They took it and ran with it from Aisha and others. Nothing have tangible have been done for the youth, but they keep on allowing these people to come out back, and now it's getting more difficult for youth to go, and it's adding up to the pressure. It's adding for the pressure, which is happening. Even the goodwill that was with the EU, we all had the pledge. Goodwill with the EU, but and we warned them against that pledge. That it's just a pledge. We have to do this, do that, do that. But no, Adam Barrow couldn't help himself. He went to be corrupt. He ignored the reforms and everything, and now nobody talk about the pledge. This is the facts we have. Why is it so difficult for us to understand this and now realize that Adam Barrow should be out of the equation of our future? We should see how we can deal with him now. But in order again to guarantee the future is not anybody but Adam Barrow. Gambians, your destination is in your hands. We've managed and fought together to bring in this temporal peace and stability, a resemblance of stability, and the democratic process. It's for us to hold on to this in order to ensure we reset the buttons in December to at least have an opportunity to restart again. But up to December is for us to try by all means to see how we contain these problems, to avoid these problems escalating to ignite the bomb, and we will regret this. I am not going to. I cannot deal more about the bomb than the current. I mean, the current positions would go because the bomb is more of or other things. It's quite wide. But what I'm saying is we have to ensure that come in December we have the powers in our hand. We have to make sure our elections are credible. It's for us Gambians to avoid people hijacking our process, election process. I mean, that's one thing Adam Bauer is thinking of, and it's going to destabilize us if we allow that. And we are confident that he cannot, because of the deficit, the amount of votes you need to steal. That deficit is impossible in this day and time to generate that by fraud. But we don't even want to encourage the fraud itself. We want a zero approach to the fraud. I cannot go on to explain that, but we'll talk about that as we go on. But there are already mechanisms that Gambian citizens are working on to ensure that will not happen because we know how it's done. We make sure it's not done. And part of that is the advocacy, talking to Gambians about it to be aware, but advocacy again, talking to our families who are not regularized citizens of the Gambia to desist from taking that practice. And talking to our families who are in position of authority who will enable us not to do that. Then the rest is in our hands again to make sure we register as Gambians as much as possible and to make sure it comes on the day we behave ourselves in orderly and decide these elections through the democratic process. And if we do that, it's not only to cast the vote. Make sure we are aware, we know that vote who we cast it for. Someone that can represent the country for the needs of leadership that we have. Can you go and make sure the person has what it needs? The person, obviously, we're talking about because the person will come from a platform, whether he's an independent person or from coalition of parties or from a single political party. Whatever the thing is, the person they present to you is quite important. The power of the executive is important in our country. We are not parliamentary-based system that our parliament will decide who or voting for our parliament. No, this is a presidential system. We make sure that the executive powers given to this person, that person will not abuse. The person have the knowledge, have the track record, have the experience because of we have more problems to deal with now than yesterday. And tomorrow will be worse. The person have the integrity. We have to fight this corruption. Someone who can take difficult choices and make sure it's the same. And because Gambia is very difficult to govern in a sense. It's easy to govern, it's difficult to govern, is to take those difficult decisions because we are so interrelated. And they will try to use this in order to undermine the will of the people. But that person has to have that integrity on him to know that it's for the interest of the common good for the Gambian people to take those difficult choices, to deliberate and make sure that's what goes on. The person has to have the mindset, which is very important to understand, to be able to relate. The person does not have to be a man or a woman. Sorry, the person obviously has to be a man or a woman, but a mindset that can connect to women, to men, to youths, to elderly, to diverse backgrounds, rural, regional, those things that pass after the mindset to govern the country as a national leader, elected Republican leader. That's the kind of mindset. But again, the mindset that the knowledge and the mindset that can relate to the geopolitics of what is happening. Our relationship with Senegal is quite important and more important now than ever because of our country have been compromised and we have lose a lot and we are continuing to lose under the presidency of Adam Barrow. And this thing has to reclaim. We have to reclaim our position of equality of states, regardless of our size and economy. We are sovereign nations and we have equality of sovereign nations. We each have a single vote to the United Nations and we are all are represented to the United Nations. We are not secondary citizens of any country or people. That have to be instilled. These are all things that we have to factor in and make sure we elect the right person. And if we do, we will start to go through the process of bringing about meaningful change again. But for now, that this is what we're doing. Who is responsible for this crime? As I said, people, first is failed leadership. Crime will always happen where leadership fails. Crime always happens, but this amount of crime or this insecurity is due to poor leadership. That's why you have leaders to do the right thing, to manage the economy, create a conducive environment for investment, and make sure education is this. And look, did this government till now give you an education policy? No, they inherited education and they're just moving on. What's their position? We don't know. That's why his political party struggle to bring out a manifesto or even talk about the manifesto. They never review what we had. They never told us this is what they're going to do for us. Do we, is our curriculum fit for purpose? Are we producing students that can go on? Are we investing enough in education? Is it anything? Are we investing in continuous learning? It's not, no. Because we all have seen, in fact, the amount of scholarships or stipends given have all reduced, and the standard of living, the conditions have reduced. How much the parents have to able to spend for the education of the child. Now is the desperation of feeding the child than the education of the child. Healthcare is the same thing. Let's go on and go on. Anything for the people is neglected. Then it's a failed leadership, and all these things will bring up. But again, let's look at two factors, three factors for that matter. People will say crime be youth see, crime be unorganized crime. And others will say, why should we hide them It's not true. What's happening? The flood download over. Who have not lived in insecurity? Insecurity is insecurity. It kind of a different, and I tell you, at this time, because it was happening, it was moving on, it was escalated, it would happen like this, and probably in a different manner because of the way Yaya will have reacted on it, killing people. I'll tell you, I'm afraid. See now in China, people are stealing, and anywhere else that they kill Sajaka. That's not it. There are other things that we do. The failure of leadership, the other thing, let's start from youth and crime, violent crime. We have seen a spike. This is the evidence we all see. I know people are talking about foreigners, but the evidence are contrary to that. What evidence do we have? We don't have national statistics to do this. What we have is what is before us, and what is before us is what comes on social media. And I know we can take that because Gambians will not go and just to choose to punish other Gambians inhumanely and wrong. Taking the laws into our own hands is wrong. If foreigners if they had arrested foreigners, they would have done the same thing for them, or even more, because there will be no empathy. Because if they cannot have empathy on their own brothers or sisters, we don't expect them to have empathy on others. But the evidence that we have seen every day, if someone, an alleged criminal or someone, a youth, most of them are youths, have committed a crime. They are paraded and been tortured, been humiliated, and other things. Whether they end up going to law enforcement, we don't know. When the law enforcement officers go out to react, not to deal with crime, to react to the outcry by going on their operation zero crime, overwhelmed. People they produce are youths and are young. And the other evidence we have in that are two in nature. One, appearance of these youths tell us they are under the influence of drugs. What drugs we talk about? Another thing is what they carry. Disregard the jamba they carry. I'm talking about the weapons. And in some cases, the evidence that we hear that what happened or what they tried to do or what they have or other things they committed by the way they break in knowing that there's someone in the house at that time of the night tell us how violent they can be or how violent they are. What does that tell us? They are Gambian youths. That society failed them. Society failed them. Is it the fault of our parents? Some would be. Some of them, their parents are even victims. Probably society failed their parents. You see, if we start to go through this, we understand we need a lot of measures to use. It's not policing anymore. We need a leadership that will look into a comprehensive plan to deal with, youth alcohol and alcohol, drug and alcohol abuse, youth crime, alcohol, in that sense. When they are youths, Gambians, why other youths are not doing this? We ask ourselves. Why other youths are in continuing education? Why other youths, even if they're not in continuing education, they are learning a trade? Why other youths, if they're not in continuing education or learning a trade, probably they're just idling around? It's not we what we prefer. But if we given this to, we prefer them idle around, stay around the home, wake up and be given breakfast and whatever left with, and so on. We don't prefer that. But it's lesser of an evil. We ask why all this? Why these youths end up to go to this extreme? Again, we can say a lot about, oh, they fail through the school system, because remember too, people fail in the school system for many reasons. Because for the way they can learn is not catered for in the school. You see, that's why schools. You see, it's important to have educational reforms, because people have understand a lot now about why students are not doing well. What do we apply that? Things in our school. Some people would drop out because they are not related in school. They might be very intelligent, but their way of they cannot. Some of them don't have the ability to be academic and all. And that all those mechanisms. I mean, all those problems. There are mechanisms to deal with them. But you have to have a serious leadership that would make this thing happen. No, we have Ministry of Youth. It's about build stadiums, build stadiums. We're running around building stadiums because that's a popular notion to win votes. Building a stadium, building a stadium. What about the social care? What about the other things we're talking about? But another thing is youths, why they're not doing this, they're not doing that, doing that, do that, do that, do that, we answer that. But another thing we have in evidence is they are abusing drugs. Why are they violent? Is it these drugs? What drugs are they? That's where the answer comes. People used to smoke gamba from the beginning of time. We never have an epidemic of crime because of people are smoking gamba. Most people did it for whatever, and you go out of it. Some people smoke it till death. Yes, it affects some. It affects different people in different ways. It makes some people chill, make other people this, and some can just handle it and they know it and they stop. Others might, before they know it, they had a mental health problem. But all that is based on, we can look at the statistics on that. But why this epidemic is because of the presence of a different kind of drugs in quantity, accessible, available. And now, all these youths that have been adding these things or experimenting all these experiment, youths experiment. That's what adolescence is. That youthfulness is. That's why it's a responsibility of governments and to create a conducive environment where citizens, civil society, and orders. But what do we have in this government? Civil society is a dirty word. Because civil society, oh, no, how politicians, then if I don't like politicians, the opposition, I don't have to like civil society from the beginning to now. You see, we all have a role to play, but there must be an enabling environment for us to play a role. Just as the private sector. Now the private sector is completely politicized. We used to have few, because the country is a poor country, economically, as it's been managed. We are not poor necessarily, but the management of our economy has always shown a few people able to acquire wealth or a little bit of being better off, being affluent or privileged. But we have seen the generosity of those people in because of our customs, our norms, and values used to do anything to help each other, to elevate each other, to support each other. But now it's going on in many ways. We are overwhelmed. We have seen the amount of GoFundMe, amount of other charities, amount of whatever it is. We are overwhelmed. But there are structural situation, I mean, structure, the structures that we had before and the relations we had before. But all that now, when it happens, is politicized. Used to have Gambia, in fact, I think invented the maritime and all that kind of. We used to have a lot of them, but now everything is done. Politicians come and support teams, and it polarize and become part of the problem. You see, these are all failures we have. Now the youths now are exposed to new kind of fraud, and we have seen the evidence of the new kind of fraud. Remember the amount of cocaine that detected in that country within this year. I am not saying that cocaine is responsible for what is happening, but some part of the cocaine would get the filter down to the medicine, and it comes in different forms. Because in order for it to be affordable, because it's even cheap compared to Europe, but to be affordable to to some of these youths, it will go through a process of blending it with other things. And people that know there's evidence of crack in the country, people that know there's evidence of very dirty pure coke in the country, but that pure coke now is been we have evidence of someone presenting his product. I cannot share it on social media, saying that a kilo, half kilo of his coke can blend that with whatever they blend it with, and still you test it, it will come pure blue and will show still the sign of pure cocaine. That's how much rich the cocaine is. But now it's been done into other things for the kids to get this. But the other evidence we have is the sun. The create finds, and people thought that that was of lesser evil. No, it's more of an evil. I'm not talking about now only the fake drugs that goes into our medical system and compromise our whole health delivery system. No, I'm talking about the opium type drugs in there, the ones the volumes, the other synthetic drugs present in that. These synthetic drugs make people are very addictive and they are affordable, and they once people are addicted, they'll do anything to fill their habits. That's why we see this zeal, this anger, and this violence from the youth. This is the epidemic. That's why we have this epidemic of youth violence. Who is responsible for that if not the leadership? Because institutions have failed. Reforms have not worked. The leadership have not worked. They have not identified to do things that are meant to be done to bring out the right people. The other bit is organized crime. Now, ordinary Gambian. I know it's always the ordinary Gambian. You've been arrested. When we have the 3 tons of cocaine, a youth, ordinary Gambian was arrested. Say, Sheriff Njai. Yeah, he's released because there's no evidence. How can an ordinary youth bring in 3 tons? We know that, but their banter have gone, and anything associated with banter, we forget about it. That's organized crime. It's only a cartel that get involved in that. We talk about how cartel works and everything, but it's a cartel. One, the hashish, 900 blocks of hashish, worth of millions of dollars, and powerful vehicles and everything arrested in somewhere around Bufu. Some Gambians are still arrested. Nobody has over about the Mauritanian owner of the consignment and everything that vanished. Organized crime. The Lebanese that were arrested when the laborers accidentally find the drugs, the cocaine, for about worth $1 million. Because I don't know the value again. I can't remember the kilos. But or let's say about $1 million. What happened? No prosecution, nothing's done. That was organized crime. Because they imported sugar from somewhere in Saudi and it comes with the sugar. Organized crime. But again, counterpart, as what we saw at Kid organized crime. Now, that crime we are sure that is committed by organized. Now we talk about the crimes that we know the youths are committing, violent crimes and everything we still have evidence, and we know most of the cases too. The cases we hear that people go out like the Lagi city, they attack you and street corners, everything else. Now people cannot go out after this. It's organized. I mean, that's youth crime, violent youth crime. Yes, violent youth crime, but youth crime. I mean, when the way you deal with youth crime is a completely different way. When you deal with organized crime, it completely. But what you know that if you deal with organized crime, it reduces because of the flow of that drugs and all those things come down to feed the youth. And the audacity of this operation, in fact, energized the youths to do as the one, especially those who already succumb to committing crime. Then you have the German factor. You have the German factor in a sense. He put um, elite over a lot of crimes that will happen. People were not even bothered to report crimes. Or crimes are reported, better dealt with, or no, we don't know. There's no statistics. But what is made people self-censored? Press was self in many ways. The press that operate even were self-censored. What all crime we have not had? And some of the time they arrested them. It was a police state. It does not mean that Gambia cannot have a viable state without it being a police state. That's an insult to the intelligence of Gambians. But if we allow it, it becomes a reality. But we all know that why would we Gambia be different? How many small countries are in this world and live viably without being organized crime hotspots? Why did we able to live in a most peaceful, stable country for 30 years? Then we will realize what went on wrong from the First Republic, going to even to let us into dictatorship. And we know then the crime, become institutionalized. Crime become institutionalized. You think that when the money exchange people were arrested, raided, arrested by junglers and other people, where did they report? They report nowhere. The crime was happening. You think when people were arrested from their houses and all things, people property has been seized. You think that was not crime? But people say now, oh, I time it, no. Now is for us to deal with what we have, and we will should be able to do this. Democracy have accountabilities and have everything. And run by institutions, and we can deal with these things. But what we have again will be the failure of this. There's a conspiracy. There's a conspiracy, and this conspiracy might be true. I am not saying it's true, but I say it might be true. Why am I not going deep into the conspiracy to say it's true, to analyze it here or there? No. Why am I not doing that? Because I have to say, because it's already out there. Do I normally discuss it? Yes. I discuss it within a controlled environment because I know the importance of discussing this thing. There's a conspiracy. Or there might be a group. There might be. Yeah, the guys doing this to undermine the state. There might be. That's what security is. You look at possibilities, there are possibilities of that. But is there any evidence of fact of that? It can be analyzed. I can sit here and analyze that. I might be biased to give an opinion, yes. Yeah, Jamaica, yes. I might analyze it and leave it hanging. But in a way, create an environment that people can be suspicious of that. But what it does is it takes responsibility from other areas and it distracts people from looking at the right cause of it. It's the responsibility of the state to lead that if they want Gambian citizens to be part of solving this crime, they have to come out and show leadership. They have to dictate the narrative. They have to communicate and engage Gambians in that manner for us to find out. But it's for the state to investigate. That's why when we call up to say, what is the update? What's going on? Because there are many ways to manage these things. Why it's not happening? Again, fail of leadership, fail of security sector reform. Probably the people in charge of the security don't know how things are done because they are all they stayed too long under a dictatorship where crimes are committed by the dictator himself or whatever it is and is dealt with certain ways. And in a democracy, it's kind of a bit difficult. You have to change the ways of policing. You have to change the way of monitoring security and dealing with security, and they fail in that. Conspiracy do happen in this case, and these are things too. Any security sector. What's the point of our SIS? No, they are all sent out to look for opponent of Barry, and these are political opponents. They are all listening to WhatsApp groups and all those where you have billions of messages, most of them just people blowing their caskets. They are going into markets. See, NIA, SIS is everywhere. It's everywhere. Markets. They have agents in markets, agents in offices, agents everywhere. How comes they are not detecting this crime? Because they are not looking for. They don't know how to look for, or they don't. They are not assigned to look for this thing, and they don't care. That's must be now. These are the things that you think about, and you say, why is this? Why this? Why this? And do it. But it's not that there. I am not saying it's conspiracy or conspiracy not there, but that is to be determined by investigation, by the state doing it, and the state can involve citizens by periodically coming out with information given a little or need to know basis. And I mean, people might see things or know things and they will know where to go, how to go. And, at times you see something you don't even know. That's irrelevant. But someone said that around this time they were in a red vehicle and they traveled towards this direction. They traveled from the CFR or in Bakau towards Banjul. Probably I was by the stadium at that time and I saw a red vehicle. Probably the police did not even know in the red vehicle there are four people. But I might be privileged. I was standing by the stadium and I have seen the vehicle and I've noticed four people and probably I know one of them. Or probably I've seen something else. Oh, among those four, one of them is a woman. Or this is how they look. This is what their age brackets are. I might have more. But even giving the police that location that no, they went through stadium, not Banjul. Because the police might think that they went through that, they might go towards Banjul. No, they branched off that. Now, the police would have a direction. Okay, they gone through the stadium. Where else did they go? And somebody else, by coming out, okay, by yes, around the time we have information, you see, you update that they went to the stadium. You might not tell the people that what you have information here is that four people were in the vehicle. One of them was a woman. Where this, no, you just said that yeah, occupants of the vehicles have been people seen occupied vehicles. You don't tell the number because it's important. Because once you start leading by giving the details, it might cloud judgment of witnesses, or it might even advance the criminals to try to get away by using the information that you give. That's why you need to control that business. Have we heard that? Have we been seeing that? Then we have to accept that going out to hotspots at a certain time of the night or day looking for youths to arrest, because that's what is happening here. Looking for youths to arrest, but how comes the criminals are big criminals, I mean, are escaping, but the youths are being captured. That's why if there's a conspiracy too, I'm not saying it did not happen or it's not happening. But again, when we look at the crime, those things help. And if you follow that update, might lead you to, in fact, to know actually how did they get away? They have crossed the border because of where certain things are present, certain things been talked about. Then okay, they left the border. Or it helps again to know the way they operate so that you can expect them another time or see happen. These are the things important, but we have seen evidence that everything that happened have never been captured. We talk about organized crime, about the drugs being important. Now let's look at the organized crime on the other robberies. How many robberies did we have? If we had investigators, I am not beating my chest. I have not taken my time to sit down and study this at all because for my own sanity. For what? If you go through all this and get it, I've been there, and it ends up staying with you, worrying, not sleepless nights, abandoning your family, abandoning your things that you need to do, your health and everything. And still nothing comes out of it because there's nobody to share it or share it, nothing comes out of it. We have to preserve ourselves. If we had the structures and everything, we could have worked together and have, but it's not happening. I'll tell you, a good investigator can narrow this down. You narrow it down, eliminate some of the things and narrow it down, and you come to decision. You profile it and you draw out your profiles here and okay, now this is it and how. And I'll tell you, we can solve this crime. We can make arrest. We can get to the bottom of this. But you have to have the people dedicated to do that. Sitting here, I can do that. Obviously, with the help of information from the ground, but I can do that. I can give you the more information I have would help me to draw it to where it is. But we will have to try to do some of that. Now let's look at the what we can remember because there's so many. I've not written it down. We might remember. Let's see things we remember. Let's say in 1 year. In 1 year doesn't mean this year. Doesn't mean this calendar year from January. Let's say 1 year from last year this time to now. How many? Go and Google it. Go and Google it. See how many crimes have been committed by armed robbery or serious crimes. One. Do we remember the soldiers arrested? 10 soldiers arrested, some from the Navy and other forces, Yundum and Fajal, who were going around to rob residents in Fajara and other locations. I'm not sure what the outcome is in the courts. I think they're dismissing the army. I don't know what the outcome is. We all remember that 10. I'm not talking about this other one that happened in the army headquarters in front in Selvi Banjul that they alleged that they stole fuel coupons. Let's leave that to be domestic in the army. We remember that. We remember the case where some people were hitting petrol stations, Jawal, few stations, Birkama, Basse, or somewhere, Farafeni and others, were hit. And when they hit on those stations, they got away with money. I'm not sure whether they arrested or not. You see, because most of these things, after you don't hear about them, unless you get to take time to go and Google it, probably someone have reported it somewhere. We remember that. That is all. Three, the case of the judge. I forgot the name of the judge. Is a woman judge. House High Court judge was, I think, I cannot even remember. Let me not speculate. The house was here, guarded by the PIU, obviously one or two, I don't know, but the PIU was guarding that. Armed robbers went in and broke in. They went in, the guards are there, they broke in, and they um, held this woman hostage with the daughter, traumatized them, took everything they had, their jewelry and money they can find on mobile phones, and left. Up to today. Did you hear an update on that? You don't think an update, as I said, could have helped us to find this? We'll not hear about it. One, not solved. We can call that even one. Or we leave the other ones. One, not solved. Two, the case of the brothers' house in Sukra. This is not dead of night. This was around late in the evening, around 8 o'clock before 9, something like that, after Timmy's prayers. Allegedly again, 16 million was robbed in a vehicle, in this thing. Again, allegedly. Why even we don't even know whether 16 million was, present or not. But investigation properly would have even determined. Whether this it was a claim, it did happen or not, but it's not conclusive now. We don't know. Two, remember when the guy, someone, an engineer, and Middle Eastern or Southeastern guy was robbed about $300,000 coming from a bank. Broad daylight on a riders. Riders, pam, 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 vanish. It happened. And probably others did happen. And now this one. How come the police have not still come out to update to try to get to bottom of this? None. Now we have this one in Carnifin. Sorry, in Joshua. We all this Joshua one. Let's stay on this one now. It's the most recent one we can all remember. A victim half claimed alleged that has been robbed 16 million worth of 16 million cash and jewelry and stuff like that. What's the investigation tell us? Still little, nothing. It's gone over 24 hours, almost 48 hours for the police to come. The earlier, the better. The little that you get, you can get something from out that. Put that out. Probably someone have seen someone going somewhere and stuff. Oh, no. Still, they have not. Even now, it's over 72 going on. No details to try to help the investigation. How they investigating this? I hope they will not go and victimize again Gambian youths. Because the nature of this crime will not have been done by amateurs. No, we can look at that. What we have to look at again, let's look at the environment. What environment did it happen? This is approximately middle of the outskirts of KMC. Where else would you go? You commit this crime. Are you going to go to Banjul? Are you going to drive toward Macau? Are you going to drive the other side? If people don't know, I've not been in the Gambia before, I still know areas that you don't want to venture when you commit a crime at that time of the night because you likely to find out. You meet up with police or other things, checkpoints and other things. But not far from there, you have the PIU. Not far from there, you have the PIU in the environment. Not on the other side, you have or this is, the prisons and other things around there. There are a lot of things that would make that area to be sound, to be safe. Now, that's the outer environment. Now, for anybody to have the audacity to come from within this, to come into this outer environment to operate, it might there be an element of confidence to do that, to pull something like this off. Then you come to the premises itself. There must be an element of confidence, knowledge of what is involved, who is involved, how things work. They have to do that in order to do that. Yes, the issue is here because I'm not sure how far is the residence to the shop. But if you go to the shop during the time, you mingle in there, buy or sell or whatever, you will see what's happening. You see the amount of money, and have an estimate of how much you think this business would make. And you can see how they comport themselves. You can know who are the people involved. You can know if it's a family business, then who are the family. I mean, then you can know the strength of the family. Do they have men in there? Are the majority women? You can tell from all those things do help. Then you need a kind of background of security, background of criminality to get into this. Again, the victim, we have to look at the victim. Who was this victim? What is this victim background? Is a victim. I don't want to go in there. I think, but the police, I am empathetic. But the police should get into this because again, when this thing happen, you start from A going out. You don't start from Z coming to A. Start from A. Even the victim might be a suspect or part of the victim family or network. So check out his background. Who is he associated with? Or what kind of other things he might be associated with? What does he have a gambling habit? Does it have other vices? Does he? Then you can check whether is it something that he's take, or does he? How's his business working? Is the business been struggling? And all these things you need a lot to do in the in this instance to get to it, but some of it directly you can tell. Then let's leave the victim there because I'm not going to speculate on anything, but I'm just saying things that you look at. I don't want to address the victim as if himself is a victim. Let's come to the suspect. Then you need to analyze the suspect through statements you receive. Now, what we hear, 6 people. Wow. It takes a lot to put 6 people together. You don't just bring them together. There must be something connecting those 6. They're able to agree on this and go on. And if you crack this crime, you might crack the other ones. But if you have investigated the other ones, in fact, you might not get to this one. Then you can tell whether it's the same people doing it or are different people doing it. But still, we don't know that. They have not profiled the crime to tell us it is likely. You use the word likely that it's the same person because overwhelming evidence is available to say that everything they operate and the composition of elements in the crime have pointed to be the same group. People understand that. You look at it, 6 people, where likely, who were likely, who are likely to be 6 people? How did they operate? According to the statement of the witness, the victim, some stayed in the car. What sort of car was it? What sort of vehicle was it? It's important. Some were with us. Some did this, some did this. In order, in an operation, to able to manage what we call individual detail task, you task people differently to do different things. People do this, take over, do that, break it, do that. You see, it tells you a lot that people have this organization knowledge, being from criminal background or from security background. Security and criminal, they do mirror each other. You have to have a security head to um to, to able to deal with crimes, but you have to be a good criminal in order to evade security. See? We have to get this through. But again, how did they access? How did they gain access? Even the time. What time did you notice the noise? What time did they live here? You put the time. What sophistication does it take? What capacity does it take for someone within this time to this time? You examine the burglar proof. What sort of materials, what sort of design should you take? You see, go on and go on. Those are the things. Those are the physical aspect first. You don't get into other things. Then to do this, it tells you a lot about the crime. And some of it you can share and get some more. That's how you solve that crime. But no, we have not had this yet. And they talk about all these things. That's how they did it. They did it. Okay, now look at what is present. Because this tool will help you in case it was complicit, that the victim is part of what happened. You have to always have that mind. What presence? A blood was present. How was examined to determine, analyze it. See, the amount of blood present, did it actually come out? Take a photo of that. Forensic will tell you a lot. But again, a good investigator tool can tell you, give you some kind of idea. Is it a nosebleed? If you say that I was pointing my nosebleed, what sort of kind of stain you think is gonna cause? And as human beings, what do we do when we have a nosebleed? We do that. And then we should be able to say what were you wearing, your pajamas or whatever. Can we have an examine of that? This thing will help not only because you have to look at it in that way. You have to have an open mind. You should not be compromised by the victim. I'm not saying you treat them as a hostile suspect, but just have an open mind. It's a nosebleed, it's a mouth bleed, it's facial bleed, or whatever it is. If it's facial bleed, look at how deep was the cut. What authorities have been cut. You might not know that the thing, but that picture and everything, the doctors might be able to help you with that. Forensic might be able to help you with that. But as an investigator, too, some of it should be obvious. If it is a scratch or whatever it is, and the blood, and forensic will tell you if it's human blood or not. All those things you need to do. But it's just cause of the investigation. That's why you code in of that place and make sure you go on. Then victim statements. The statements are very important. And important to you to able to not to lead the victim, but to help the victim to recollect. Because victims do lose a lot when something happened, but you should know question to ask. They might not know the importance of some of these things that they need to tell you. You have to get it out from them. What accent? What language did they speak? Wolof. What accent was that Wolof? Did they call out any name? Did they call each other by any name? They might call them for a nickname or mistakenly at times. During operations, you call them by their own name. They call them by any name. If they speak Wolof, Mandinka, Fula, or whatever, do they have an accent? Does it sound as Malian, Senegalese, Guinean? If it's Olaf, does it Olaf sound like Mandinka? If it's Mandinka, the Mandinka does it sound as Olaf speaking? Or because you can, some people can do this. You're trying to find that. Now, I mean, the people that they know. Okay, the people that came in, what frame were they? Were they short, tall, huge, big, whatever? Do you see any identity? These are things and some of these you have to share as much as careful as possible, but as soon as possible in order to help the investigation to go on. And that's why people keep on. But but then look at the identity. Then you look at the possibilities. Who can commit such a crime? Who are the kind of people that come? People that have security backgrounds, people that have criminal backgrounds, people of this, or there might be people crossing the border because it's easy to cross the border in the Gambia. Because those accents and all the things and all the things and all the things might be, and start asking yourself, who are the likely people to commit this crime? You profile the crime, profile the criminals, the scene of crime, and profile the victim itself because it tells you again. Because some victims might not be in it, but the people they associate with might be in it. They might show them off. Their friends or their business or someone that works for them or someone that supplies to them can know that, oh, and I just realized, oh, I went to Ben's shop. Actually, on Ben's shop on a Sunday. This is how much taking. Ben have a habit not to be taking money to the bank up to this day. And this, things like and this is habit. And be part of it. Maybe all these things are important to this so that you can match it. And the other thing you say, match the suspects. Yes, from this information, profile and everything, you profile the suspect to match to something. That's where you move on to look out for that. And it helps the investigation. That's how we have to have that expensive profile, the mode of transport, and all those things needed to be done. But I understand there's a speculation, doubters. This thing happened in crimes. People will say, "Oh, why the body language was not right," but actually, most of us are not experienced to tell a right body language. Body language, my people react to crimes in different ways. It's not easy to say as unless you are an expert or you have so much experience. Uh, when crimes happen, it's hard to decide whether the body language was right or not. Some people point out, or the blood was this or that. I don't think that most of those people doing that have any experience. It's just speculation. The best people who can help us on this is the law enforcement to do the investigation properly and see other investigations when time is right. The other thing is, some people are speculation it might be an inside job. There's a possibility of that, but again, we don't know that. We have to get the information right to know that. And you we might talk sit down here analyze. Or is this what good does it do? It just throw more dirt to the investigation than do good um, about it. But I before leaving, I have to bring some valid on this case, some very valid observation that we needed to able to deal with this case properly. If you may allow me, let me just go through a post I've written in relevant to this about this case actually and similar cases. Okay, the post. Let me just quickly go through the post and analyze it very quick. I want to get out of this. I need to go and cook the lunch. I said on the huge amount of money robbed allegedly $16 million is including some gold and very expensive watch. The journalist should ask the follow-up questions on what that amount on why that amount of money was saved at the business premises, not at the bank. Journalists do help in fighting crime by asking relevant questions, by presenting the investigations on a journalistic point of view without jeopardizing the investigation. And these are valid questions that can be asked. And people can understand from the victim himself. Does the victim justice to? Why did you do this? And apparently, and likely, it's a crime to keep this amount of money. I don't know how much it is in Gambia, but here there's an amount of money that you are allowed, and it's about less than £10,000. Anything 10,000 or more in your house, you have to justify how you earn that money and why you keep that money in your house. Not only you can have it lawfully, but why you keep it in your house, you have to justify that. And obviously you have to have an insurance in other cases. If not, you lose your everything and valuables. That's it. The media houses should also involve a subject matter specialist during their investigation and report of the and reporting of the news story. It's important to always have people that have knowledge of what have happened. And in this case, you need a security and you need a financial, um, someone with a financial service experience to give us. This is how we educate people. We educate our citizens on the crime and nature of crimes and other things. But it helps investigations as well. People to understand and it reduces speculation. It doesn't stop speculation, but it reduces speculations into these crimes because more speculation pollute the mind of others who might who should come forward and give very relevant information, but they might not because of they are already been polluted because of the conspiracies going on. And in this case, security and financial service expert to give us comprehensive details to reduce the amount of speculation and educate the public better, which will benefit combating the rising crime being committed. The Financial Regulatory Authority should ensure the banks are competitive to encourage businesses to use the banking system instead of taking risk in holding a large amount of finance into within their premises, causing insecurity and losing the treasury huge amount of tax revenue. Um, when we talk about government and creating an enabling environment, obviously that does by they do that by regulation, legislative frameworks, and in this case, the central bank should have and Gambia, as I thought, some people replied who know better and said to me, because I had that before, but I was not sure, that if you put in foreign currency into an account, you pay for deposit in the account, money in the account, the foreign currency, and you pay for doing withdrawals. That's bizarre. That's bizarre because other conditions can be put in, but a payment for your deposit not being paid interest, but why? I mean, it discourages people to send their money there, and it causes insecurity because people will hold their money in their houses, and it costs the state resources by causing insecurity. Then the regulator should ensure that banks wouldn't should not charge people for deposits of foreign currency, just as local currency and withdrawal of their foreign currency. What they can do is, my point of view here, is they can put conditions that withdrawals have to be structured or withdrawal have to be this. Say that you can, if you deposit a certain set amount, you cannot withdraw that within a set time, or if you withdraw it within a set time, there might be a penalty. In this case, it's like because the bank is already using your forex, they are not putting it in a vault. You are not renting a locker to lock your money. Your lock money goes into the bank's finances, and they sell it. When you come back for it, they give you what they have in there. They have to control that. Yes, there's a control mechanism, but I don't think it's right. What it does, it take the incentives to people to save their money in the thing, and course. But again, it causes the treasury to lose interest and money because of the money that should have been in a bank. If you put that money in a bank, that bank, and actually, my thinking, I think I might be right here. People that know better can educate us. Because you put the money in the bank, it's accounted for. That money goes in, it's accounted for, then it helps inform our policymakers to know, okay, actually, we have so much of foreign currency. Now, the foreign currency market is not distorted. The forex market is not distorted. People will know. But if we don't have the correct amount, now we are short of foreign currency. No, we are not short of foreign currency. It's not in circulation. It's been kept in the. It's been hoarded. That's why it's important to give an enabling environment, conducive environment, by having regulations, legislations that will help improve things, not to the, this thing. I think that needed to be examined again. The central bank need to reform that. I continue to say the I said the practice might be illegal, but I am not certain a financial service expert might educate us on the legality of holding legitimate earning within personal premises, apart from tax avoidance purposes. It's illegal that if you keep something to avoid paying tax, tax avoidance is crime. Tax avoidance is crime. Is it tax avoidance? I mean, something. But my bad. But again, it's confirmed because as is in UK here, apparently, I'm not. Someone said it's not official, but someone contributed to say, "Oh, having that much money with you at your house, it's a crime." But I'm not sure about that. We need to be educated for that. I said both, but interestingly, I said here, both foreign and Gambian-owned businesses ship money out via legitimate means, which is part of the financial system. Gambian businesses, being a foreign owner, do export money out of the country, and a huge amount of that foreign currency is exported back out of the country. It's part of the financial systems. And some people do it for other reasons. Again, to use the cash rather than going through the banking system to borrow or to use the banking facilities that help them to import. Some small businesses and medium-sized businesses do, also even some big businesses might rather export money to China and paid with their cash than use the banking services to do these things. It do happen, or Dubai, mainly in Dubai, they do that. And so it does happen. That do happen. But again, I went on to say And but a large number of them are holding and laundering a large number of financial, a large number of finances, including gold and diamond, shipping them out of the country, and most of these funds are deprived of criminal syndicate, including from the including corruption from the public office. There are a lot of corruption going on now, and these corrupt officers are not using the banking system. They pay them bribes. They don't take it to their accounts. They keep it in their houses. And some of these people too, some businessmen too, now are instead investing in gold and diamonds rather than cash in order to smuggle these things out of the country because of they are a criminal syndicate. They are part of money laundering this thing because all these criminals you hear and everything they have a money laundering system that they build, and that is through forex, that is through businesses they operate and so on to launder the money, and they do this and hoard the money and take it. But some of the money they cannot or they don't want to put it through the banking system because again for tax reasons and tax avoidance they don't want to put it through the banking system. They hoard this money and move it. As I'll continue here. I said, recently, Senegal has become a favorite destination for these criminals. They are shipping the money to Senegal to launder the funds into the business and real estates, then to finally to their final destination countries in the Europe and USA, as both America and European Union have closed many of the money laundering loopholes. You see, during the Ajame time, before 9/11, Jawara time, few people have lost money by carrying money through Gatwick or Heathrow, Gambian officers. And some of those people, when they brought their money, there was a case of the what they call BCCI scam, a bank called BCCI or something like that. That was a bank operated by Middle Eastern people, and they were given a lucrative, good interest for deposit. And a lot of the mafia in the PPP government lost their savings because they smuggled that money, brought it here, put it in banks. Even that's our money. But again, other people continued, and somewhere, in fact, reported that they have been apprehended with money and seized that money in the point of entry to the United Kingdom and other places. And because that's how they used to bring the money. Now they limit it and restructure it, bring in certain amount, just less than the amounts that will make them to impound the money and save this money here and others. But now that's even very difficult after 9/11. After 9/11, the banks have already been listening. And I remember some office of government officers, in fact, time of Yajame, that the banks here have impounded the money they had, and they had to prove that they was from legitimate earning and they lost that money. You see, people have been losing money in many ways. But now, what they do is they take this money to Senegal. It's easier to get into Senegal with this money. And some of these people are government officers, businesses, laundering for money laundering and all and corrupt officers or to the cities. They don't want to use the banking system, they go to Senegal. They buy properties in Senegal. Just as some of them buy properties in Gambia, but because of the link to corruption, they would rather buy properties in Senegal or they buy businesses in Senegal. Because Senegal still, the regulations is not that you can buy properties by cash or you can bypass their money laundering listing and buy properties and other things. Buy apartments, hold it for a while, resell it even for lost values. I mean, or they do other scams. Then the money is paid to you now. You sell it properly and paid structured. That's what we call structuring. You structure it, make sure it's paid legitimately to your account, and you can show off that from Dakar and send it to the EU, and you can prove, okay, I sold a property in Dakar and these things because the bank will not go beyond that to testify. All they do is check whether the those proceeds found themselves in the account was through legitimate means. They cannot go beyond that. Only an investigator who is looking at deeper would get to this thing like government trying to find their money is stolen. This thing, they can go deep it down to how did you even have the property that you sold. The bank will not ask that. This is what they're doing now. That's why most of them are buying property in Dakar. Right now, there is a lucrative rental in Dakar, short-term rentals. Some of them are involved in that. We know them, and we'll get to that. We're not going to tell them all that we know, but one day we'll get to that when we need to go back for our money. We teach them a lesson. But these things are happening, and other businesses are doing it. And these are all things that, again, a government should be aware of. But if the government itself, Barrow himself was doing it. Barrow himself is doing it. And government is doing it. That's why, you see, the crime, failed leadership have to be whole responsible. And every other person is doing it. And this is what it brings about. I said, the fighting of crime should target the organized criminal syndicate to stamp out the rise of crime. Small criminals only feed off from the organized crime syndicates. We have to fight the big crimes if you want to fight small crimes. If we keep on going picking up, it's a conveyor belt. They will keep on having. We keep on having the problem. What we need to do is seriously. I said. The large seizure of Class A drugs and all the counterbands, the fake and synthetic drugs, is evident of the crime syndicate in operation, resulting in the rise of reports of various serious robberies in the streets and attacking people while they are in their fortified premises. That's the fact. This is what is encouraging, as I analyzed earlier. Some of the drugs on transit are consumed within the country, creating more addicts that would do anything to fit their habits by committing violent crimes. And the more sophisticated crimes are carried by the same criminals importing the crime or the criminal linked to them as part of the supply chain. What this means is the drugs, class A drugs, the cocaine, and some of it has been consumed, as I analyzed earlier. But what I mean that some of these people, in fact, it's a crime syndicate. What happened is they work with criminals, and some of the criminals they work with might not only be supplying drugs; they might just be fed up of that. Now they have the infrastructure; they are part of the buying system. Now they go and do robbery. Probably they are doing the robbery because this is how it happens in other countries. And to continue on that, I just want to read this and get out of this here now. Um, I said, okay, until we elect and appoint the right people that will apply a comprehensive approach in combating crime and corruption, we shall never be secure. Until we elect the right people and make sure they appoint the right people and apply the policies, a comprehensive make a plan, approach it comprehensively to do this properly, we and fight corruption, these crimes would never ever, they will never finish. I've not even talked about corruption and crime. I mean, that's another the topic for another day. I said targeting the small criminals or the delinquent youths is not the way to combat organized crime. This is organized crime. You need a comprehensive effort. I believe that there, I believe there is no incentive to saving foreign currency in the banking in a bank account due to the expensive bank charges. Most of the money might be in foreign currency that is normally shipped out to foreign accounts or traded with other business in maximizing their profit. There is an opportunity to open a safe deposit box. Businesses in the country, so that businesses in the country, for these businesses in the country and other people can use the safe deposit box. Now, your houses are no more safe. If you take it to the banks, they charge you. Why not somebody now innovate here and build a sort of safe deposit box system that people can take their gold, their diamonds, and money and make sure it's secure, documents and other things. Now, and take the crime off because once they know that you don't have anything in your house valuable, they don't come in because these people are not coming for television. They're coming for money and other things. And if they know that now the Gambian business people or the Gambian that have the culture of moving money away from them, they will not bother that way. They will. But if you wear a 20,000 pounds or dollars watch, and we live in a country like that, you'll be a target. And I'm not saying it's right, but these are the realities. That's why again, final note where I'm gonna finish here is, as I always say, and I'll keep on repeating this, we have to solve this problem now and we have to tackle it now. And this government will not do it for us. We have to find a way of doing that. And the Gambian elites, again, and the final solution to this is not building a bigger fence or barbed wire, what CCTV or white men or anything. Nothing will solve it. And people talking about private security, you don't even know what you're talking about. It's gonna get worse if we go through that route. Next minute, private security would be, in fact, be the one, and they will join and become and part of everything. It's not that. We don't want to militarize our police. We don't want to militarize our private security. They can be a solution, but not to be armed or other things, and they can do other things. And all it takes is good leadership, and things will be summed up. Thank you very much, guys, and have a good afternoon. There you go.